experience and integrity matters. Thank you so much for tuning in. Got a great show lined up for you today. We're going to run through the games that have happened this past weekend. We'll get you set for the upcoming weekend. Just wrapped up week 4. We'll also talk to Lighthouse Warriors head coach J.J. Duarte. Warriors are hot right now, and they've got a big stretch of games coming up for them. But right now, let's back up and let's talk about what has happened this past weekend. Let's start in Alabama. Springwood School. We got a chance to talk to Coach Joey Birch a couple weeks ago, and they are on a roll. They are 3-0 right now with a big 51-16 win over Evangel Montgomery. And so Evangel Montgomery coming off that loss to Evangel Alabaster last week, and Springwood with wins over Calhoun County out of Georgia, and then Southern Prep, and then I mentioned Evangel. So they are hot right now on a really good tear and a really good stretch. A team that, was runner-up for that was a championship rematch there in Lanett, Alabama, Friday night, and Springwood the runner-up in that game, and they're poised to really, really do well. And so we'll see what happens with them. Speaking of Evangel Alabaster and Southern Prep, they played on Friday night. Long rivalry that the two of them have had, and it's the Lightning 52-12 with the win. They move to 4-0 as well, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 5-0. Let me see. I believe it's 5-0. Nope, 4-0. 4-0. Had that right the first time. But they took on Southern Prep, and, from the jump, it was Evangel all night long. And run through the stats real quick. Really in the run game, they had guys contributing all across the board. Kemp Swords, a solid night, I would say. Didn't have to do a whole lot. Like I said, running game was just clicking. You had Caleb Austin, Will Welch, Eli Black, and Colton Duro with touchdown runs. And then you had Zion Thompson and Will Welch. They did catch 2 touchdowns in that game as well. Just continuing to keep going. In terms of defense, I think the defensive leader was, let me get his first name, John Taylor Curran. I know I got that wrong, but the senior with 5 tackles on the night. Over on the Southern Prep side, you had Caden Jackson leading the Fighting Rangers with 7 tackles of his own. And then for Evangel, you had 2 interceptions by Zion Thompson, so young man picking up where his brother left off. And he had a solid year last year as well, but definitely contributing in a big way to this Lightning team. So Evangel Alabaster moves to 4-0. East Central Patriots, they took on North River Christian out of the AISA. Of course, East Central coming out of the ACSC. Just like that matchup with Evangel and Southern Prep, ACSC versus AISA. And the Patriots got a win on Friday night, 32-14. Knox Cooper had 150 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Dominic Pafumi, his older brother, Tony, up at Oakland City University, if I'm not mistaken. But Dominic had 15 carries, 161 yards, and 2 touchdowns of his own. And so they were clicking the other night. Everybody just kind of working together. Micah Smith had all 3 catches. Well, 3 of the catches. Sorry, 2 of them went to somebody else, but 3 catches and had 3 touchdowns. So very, very efficient there. In terms of tackles, your leader was Seth Allison with 12 tackles. Senior for the Patriots, Micah Smith, also had 10 tackles and contributed a tackle to loss. And a couple passes defense, fumble recovery by Cassian Falk, and a forced fumble by Micah Smith. So big game there for the Patriots. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they moved to 2-1. They had the loss to Evangel Alabaster, and they have beaten Tuscaloosa and North River. So looking to continue doing well in that game. I'm going to go down to, let's jump to Tennessee. Tri-Cities Christian on the road taking on Zion Christian there in Columbia. And the Eagles coming off the loss. Well, they're both the Eagles. Tri-Cities coming off the loss to Tennessee Heat. Zion Christian coming off the loss to South Haven Christian. And Tri-Cities 48-16 win over Zion on the road. Good to see them start to pick up a little momentum there. I believe that is their third or fourth win for after restarting the program. And I think they beat Lighthouse Christian last year out of Antioch. I know they had a win earlier this season against Orangeburg Christian down in South Carolina. That might be it. That might be it for their wins. I'll look into it. But regardless, big win for them and a big conference win. I believe that might be their cross-divisional game, if I'm not mistaken. Gotta love Max Preps. All the ads popping up. Just lovely. Just wonderful. Let's see. Thankfully, Tri-City's back on Max Preps. Having a little issue with them. Max Preps wanting to flip it over to Trinity Academy, which they are not Trinity Academy. That's what the original Tri-Cities turned into, if I'm not mistaken. So they'd had two wins last year. One was a forfeit win over the Bradley Knights, who do not have football this year. And then mentioned Lighthouse Christian was their other win. So 3 wins for them since restarting the program. So congratulations to them. Heading over to, let's see, like I said, let's stay in Tennessee. Franklin Christian, they traveled down to Chattanooga to take on Grace Academy. Really cool atmosphere for that game. Actually playing it at Finley Stadium on the campus of UTC, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. And FCA made the most of the situation. 14 points in the first quarter, 21 points in the second quarter. And final score 35-7. The Golden Eagles able to put up a touchdown in the fourth quarter. So Franklin Christian moves to 3-0. They do not have their win against Christian Community on Max Preps for some reason. By the way, speaking of Christian Community, they did not play this last weekend, but if you look at their Max Preps, someone has them losing 56-0 to St. Andrew's Swanee School, who has not had football in 3 or 4 years. So that is incorrect. So if you go to look at Christian Community, just know it's wrong. Still in Tennessee, Battle of Springfield, South Haven Christian Innovation Academy, 3.8 miles from each other. And the Patriots kicked off the rivalry with a big 54-0 win, just handling the Sentinels. And so they moved to 2-1 on the year. And Sentinels at 0-2 after the loss to Franklin Classical. Let's jump back to Alabama real quick. Had a game taking place in Montgomery between the Freedom Cowboys and Ezekiel Christian. And I'm going to try to pull up the explanation of the game that I got, because there's no stats or anything on Max Preps, but where's it at? There it is. All right, so at halftime, it was 28-16 Freedom Cowboys in the lead, right? The end of the game, it was 38-34. Cowboys came back, the Knights came back. They went up by 2 in the fourth quarter. Freedom went down and scored with a minute left. And then Ezekiel able to score essentially a walk-off. And so a big win for the Knights. Freedom, that is their first loss that Freedom's had that was not Evangel in 1,030 days. Just an insane stat. I think it goes back to 2020. And then it's been almost 3 years to the day since they've lost to a non-Evangel Alabama team. And it was, you guessed it, Ezekiel, the last non-Evangel Alabama team that beat them. So just some wild stats there, but a big win for Ezekiel there in the ACSC. They had the win over Russell, and but just been kind of getting their feet back up under them. New coach, new situation, and Good for them. Love to see it. Love to see it. Let's see. Let's jump to. We'll stay in Alabama. Speaking of Russell, the Warriors 42 to nothing over Success Unlimited, the Mustangs. So Russell picks up a big conference win there. Tuscaloosa Christian hosted Trinity Christian Homeschool out of there in the Pelham area, the Alabaster Pelham area, and 56-35 Warriors get the win in that one. Big win for them. Let's jump to South Carolina. No, let's stay in Alabama one more time. Jacksonville Christian taking on Tabernacle Christian. Big conference game here. Tabernacle's first game of the season. Jacksonville coming in at 3-0, and I don't have the Thunder stats in front of me, but we'll run through Tabernacles. It was a close game. 27-8. It's a solid win. 8-7. Tabernacle actually had the lead at the end of the first quarter, and then Jacksonville with a touchdown in the second, third, and fourth quarters. Second and fourth quarters, they didn't get the 2-point conversion. Otherwise, it would have been 29-8, or I'm sorry, 31-8. Can't math, just cannot math. So, 27-8, Thunder get the win. For Tabernacle, though, debuting a new quarterback, Aaron Peters, after Clinton Chase has graduated. He's now at Shorter University. But Aaron Peters kind of getting his footing up under him. Reed Chase, younger brother, 16 carries, 87 yards. And then you had Aaron Peters on the ground, 34 rushing yards and a touchdown. In terms of defense, you had Kyle Gillis with 11 tackles, and he led the team. Reed Chase also had 8. Chase contributed a sack along with Blackburn, and then 2 passes defensed there by Kyle Gillis, who I mentioned led the team in tackles. But a big win for Jacksonville Christian. They moved to 4-0 on the season. So I got a lot coming up for them as well. Let's jump to South Carolina. Pack Panthers hosted New Hope Leadership Academy, and the game got called at halftime due to numbers and injuries for New Hope. But the Panthers, 36-0, that was their lead over the Gladiators, and so Panthers now move to 3-1, and they did have that loss to Lighthouse. 3-1, and so they continue to roll unbeaten in conference play. So looking good for them. Augusta Eagles on Thursday took on Coastal Hurricanes, and the Eagles 32-6 win over the Hurricanes. Augusta Eagles, another team that they're making some noise. Let's look up Augusta real quick. Let's see. There they are. They are unbeaten at 3-0. Wins over Lawrence Academy, Victory Christian, and Coastal Hurricanes. So solid start for the Eagles there in Georgia, and of course their guy a couple weeks ago winning Defensive Player of the Week. Victory Christian, speaking of them, they hosted Community Christian, fun fact, out of my birth town, Wilson, North Carolina, and got a 40-6 win over the Cyclones, and so a big win for them. Let's jump to Arkansas. Abundant Life Christian, 42, Trinity Christian out of Texarkana, 6. So the Owls with a win to move to 1-1 on the season. Southwest Christian got a big win last week, and then this week fell short. Marshall High School there in Arkansas got the win, 64-13. Marshall, part of that AAA group, the Arkansas Activities Association. They do have 2 divisions, and so it's kind of broken down there. Maybe I'll get into it at some point, but big shout out to Arkansas 8-Man Football, the Facebook page, and I believe they have an Instagram, maybe Twitter as well. I think they do have a Twitter, but doing game broadcast on YouTube, and so you can find the links on their Facebook page. But had a broadcast going on Friday night. I think the broadcast you had was Franklin Christians, Evangel Christians, and then the Arkansas game of the week. And I think Missouri had one as well. Speaking of Missouri, big shout out to them yesterday. Had a really cool matchup between one of their schools and a school from Haxton, Colorado, Haxton High School. I think Haxton had to travel 8 hours, something like that, 8 or 9 hours, for the game, but and got a big win. But a big shout out to them for having that game yesterday. Got a chance to watch that one after just watching Tennessee absolutely obliterate Virginia. So sorry, Virginia, but we still got it. We're back. Anyways, let's jump to, speaking of the SEC, let's jump to Louisiana. North Shore Vultures on Thursday took on First Baptist Christian. Got a 56-8 win. North Shore at 2-1, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. On Friday night, Acadiana Christian took on Mount Olive Christian and got a 76-0 win. Mount Olive, a team that has struggled a little bit. Acadiana, somewhat on a roll. They're getting it together. And then John Paul the Great out of Lafayette. They came away with a 48-6 win over Southwest Louisiana Homeschool. Close game in the first quarter, 16-6, and then the Guardians kind of pulled away from the Knights. 24 points in the second quarter, and then added a touchdown in the fourth. I want to run through these stats real quick for John Paul the Great. Their quarterback was 3 of 3, 99 yards and a touchdown, so a very efficient night. Sawyer Dean, their senior running back, 6 carries, 160 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then you had 3 different guys catching a touchdown pass. No, 1 guy catching a touchdown pass. 3 different guys with catches. Peter Kramer, a junior, had a catch for 86 yards and a touchdown. And then let me jump down to defense real quick. Let's see. Riley Lormond, the freshman, led the team in tackles with 9. Had a tackle for loss as well. Let's jump down to sacks. Had some hurries. And then Fontenot with an interception on the season as well. So they continue to roll down there in Louisiana. And their championship does line up so that schedulally they could be at the NHSA championship tournament in Panama City Beach, Florida. So very, very interesting there. You kind of wonder, hey, could the wild card, come up from the bayou, kind of throw a little something in the mix there. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with them. I did skip over a game in Alabama that took place on Friday night. Lighthouse Warriors hosted Cornerstone Christian Rainsville. Warriors got the win over the Eagles 63-6. They put up 36 points in the first quarter, 14 in the second, and then a touchdown in the third and fourth quarters. Eagles had the touchdown in the first quarter. Elliot Knowles wasn't asked to do a whole lot. 2 of 2 for 20 yards and a touchdown. But you had several guys with at least 40, 50 receiving yards, multiple catches. With rushes, multiple rushes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys had rushing touchdowns that night. And then in terms of defense, let's see, looks like Cullen White led the team in tackles with 8. Also had a tackle for loss. You had Bracker, Graves, and Farrell each with a sack. And then John Caden Moon with an interception, and Clay Boatman with an interception as well. And so we'll go ahead and get Coach Duarte lined up here.
Hello, sir.
Joining me now is the head coach of the Lighthouse Warriors, Coach J.J. Duarte. Coach, I appreciate you joining me.
Absolutely. Hope all is well, and appreciate the opportunity to jump on 8-Man Extreme, and thankful for everything that you do for all of us 8-man teams, and everything you do for our guys and in the sport.
Oh, man, you can't see me through the phone, but I'm blushing. Let's back up just a little bit to how this season began. Obviously, you guys are 4-0. You've beaten teams from South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama. But let's talk about the South Carolina win that you had in Tennessee. One of the most unique situations I've ever been in. I'm sure the same goes for you as well. let's talk about a little bit about through how that happened, because you did have the staff member come down and they let the officials know. What was the process like getting the guys in the locker room, kind of shutting the game down a little bit for you guys?
Man, that was tough. Just for I think our guys. Um, now Andrew Caps did a great job and did I think everything you could do in that situation. But it was hard trying to figure out. With that delay, do we go back to our rooms? Do we stay there? So that was a tough situation. I think kind of got her. I think there for a while we didn't think we were going to play again. I think that got in our guys' heads a little bit. So that was tough trying to keep everybody focused, especially what was like 2.5 hour delay and
Three and a half hours, yeah.
3.5. Thinking about the weather and so I think that was that was tough and that was hard for us. And Coach Humans has got a great team, and of course they've had great history. Winning the conference last year, and hats off to them. And but yeah, coming out, it was 8-0 at halftime, and then we started getting things rolling a little bit there in the third quarter. And man, we come out flat, and you got to play a full 4 quarters, and that's what I tell my guys. Hey, control the things that we can control, and we started to lose control there for a little while.
I'm guessing the attitude from the guys was, we want to go play this if we can.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You mentioned at halftime, close game, 8-0. We're all thinking, okay, here we go. Nobody could have envisioned that this might happen. Halftime, it's a close game. We're like, okay, this is how you kick off the season. Third quarter, you guys just take off, just start clicking. Elliott, who played in the Rising Star games last year, but you also had Clay Boatman, Ben Hirsch, guys like that start clicking. And you lost them last year to injury. Those two guys specifically that are seniors. That you got that leadership back this year. How big is that leadership?
Man, that's huge. And I think it's taken us that game because you get these guys back into the rotation. And last year both of them getting hurt. So Ben got hurt the first game, so you had Clay that stepped up and took all the snaps from that point on. Then he got hurt, and then
Yep.
Moved guys around. So that's kind of been a challenge. We started practice a little bit later. Didn't have with a game being as early as it did. So I think we had to find out a little bit about ourselves. And we got a great group of guys, a great group of leaders. We got 12 seniors, as you mentioned.
Oh yeah.
Those names already. So just trying to get back out there on the field together and get back to the jail. I mean, they all love each other, but you got guys that missed the whole season last year, so getting back in there and getting reps and getting back into the rotation of things. So that was a little. I felt like we were a little slow there, but I think we kind of figured it out, and we figured it out since then. And yeah, the leadership's huge. We got guys that we can put the ball in their hands, multiple guys, and that's huge to have more than one or two guys that you can put the ball in their hands and trust them, or put them out on the field to stop another offense and put trust in them. So that's huge for us guys.
It seems like one of those guys is a young man by the name of Cullen White, who's been around the program for a while, and it really seems like he was clicking last year, he was doing well last year, but it looks like he's playing on another level this season.
Yeah, so Cullen is one of those guys that studies the game. Not just he's not the biggest in stature, but he knows the game. He studies it. He's one of those guys that's watching film all the time. He's always picking up on tendencies, and he loves the game. He's even before he was playing with us, he had some older brothers. So even before he was playing with us, he was a water boy for us for like 2 or 3 years.
Oh wow.
Before he knew our offense before he even stepped out on the field. He would ask me questions as a water boy. Hey, coach, why did you do this? Why are we doing that? And to be honest with you, as a little fifth grader, sixth grader, he was coming up saying, "Hey, coach, what do you think about this?"
Oh wow.
One of those kind of guys that again studies the game, loves the game, and he doesn't let. He might be smaller than some of the guys that we play, but he's in there and he hits just as hard at him and he brings it. So.
Then talk about the game against Pack, and then skip forward to the next week, another big game for you guys to start the year. Tennessee Heat coming in, and they're a team that were runners-up for their conference championship last year. They made the trip to Florida, played in that tournament down there. The game last year was an instant classic. Instant classic. And then you get to this year, and it's just a knockdown, drag-out fight. Coming off of that Pack game, how did you guys? Because you were working on a short week too, and they had they had a little more time. So in terms of getting your guys ready after the whole situation that happened with the Pack game, and then knowing that the Tennessee Heat were coming in, what was the process like to get your guys ready?
Man, we know Coach Scott is going to bring it every time we step on the field with him. This is, I think, the fourth year we've played him.
Yeah.
He's always got his team prepared. They're always ready to go, and you got to be ready for them. So we knew that they're starting off the season with two very tough games, and we've done that on purpose. Our guys, we want to try to be the best, and so we got to compete with the best week in and week out. So it's tough coming off a short week, especially coming back from long trip in Gatlinburg, and so we tried to prepare as best we can as we could, and it was hard too. It's hard to get film at the beginning of the season, trying to figure out what teams are going to do. So we kind of went off of what they did last year, and I've told my guys again that we've got to go out there and be physical, and they may show up in something completely different than we're ready for, but we've got to be able to adjust, and so I've been preaching that to our guys, and we found a way to win. Again, it was I think that's pretty good Tennessee-Alabama rivalry that we've built over the past few years.
Oh yeah. You talk about starting the season off tough. Coming up, you guys have Ezekiel at home, and then you go to North River, and then you go to Evangel, and then you host Springwood, and then you host Freedom, and then you host your rivalry Central. Now, granted, four of those 6 games being at home has to be a huge advantage, but it's not like you guys' schedule gets any easier. How awesome is it to be able to play those games with those quality opponents in front of your home crowd and be able to keep the routine for your guys somewhat normal?
Man, it's great. I know you've been to one of our home games, but
Oh yeah.
We've got a great crowd. We've got a fan base. We've got parents that really buy in. So it's super exciting. It's loud. Our cheerleaders are great. And so it is big having home games. And you're right. It's we have a tough schedule. Like you said, Pack went in their conference last year. Going to make a run for it again. You got Tennessee Heat that was in their championship last year. You got Freedom that won that championship, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
you got a force that beat us last year in the championship. And then you got Springwood, which I believe competed in their championship as well.
Yep.
They're and all the teams are looking great. I mean, so we're hitting it every week. There's really no, you got to be prepared week in and week out. And we love it. It's tough, but we love it, and and that's what you got to do if you want to, again, we're trying to take it up a level as a program, and so in order to do that, you got to play the great competition.
Well, and it seems like you guys, just 3 or 4 years ago, it was like, okay, there's Lighthouse. They're just, they're there. Cool. They might have a couple good guys, but you guys have really, really stepped it up a notch over the last couple of years from the outside looking in. And another team that's done something like that is Ezekiel. Now, granted, they had a coaching change, and they're coming up from Friday night after getting a big win over Freedom, big comeback win. A team that, everyone's like, oh, okay, it's Freedom. That's going to be a tough one. And then Ezekiel beats them. You also, and then they come off the win, against Russell, and they've kind of been on a little bit of a roll. To cap that all off, it's a conference game, so that's huge. But in terms of getting your guys ready for something like that and getting them ready for the end of the season, what's that process look like to get them ready for a game like that? Because Ezekiel is a rivalry. You guys have played for a championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and talking about the toughness of schedule, and I kind of left Ezekiel out there. Didn't mean to, but Ezekiel's that team.
Coach Lawrence, if you're listening, there you go.
They're seriously, Coach Lawrence is taking the reign there this year. I'm hearing a lot of good things, but
it doesn't seem like he skipped a beat.
No, not at all. And like I said, I didn't mean to not mention them because those guys are, they're finishing in the top 3 every year in our conference, and then they've had a run of being in the state championship, winning the state championship. So that just adds another game to think about the toughness of our schedule. But we're going to try to prepare and do the best we can for them. And again, it is a big advantage. I feel like that we're playing them at home, a big conference game. So we're gonna try to go into this game. We want to play physical. We want to set the tone. Again, we want to control. Um, we want to control the game. We want to control the speed of the game, and so that's kind of what we're teaching our guys. And we want to play disciplined. Ezekiel historically has had a team that they can make some big plays, and so we want to eliminate those big plays, and we want to make tackles, and we want to be able to move the ball. So
It seems like you guys have been able to control the pace of the game the last couple weeks with Southern Christian and Cornerstone Christian. But I want to give you a chance to talk about your quarterback a little bit too, because that's a big part of controlling the tempo of the game and the speed of the game. Elliott, playing in the Rising Stars game last year, just showed up. It did not embarrass anybody at all. Matter of fact, maybe exceeded some expectations. And then he came into this year, and he's just kind of just jumped right back into the role. Want to give you a chance to talk about him a little bit.
yeah, so Elliott's that kid that was competing for a starting job and come in last year and took it over. And man, he's been great. He's that kid. It's one of those stories that you could write a book about. Coming in, paying his dues, and then when his time to step in, and he's done what he's needed to do. He's smart. He as a quarterback, you got to have a quarterback that knows what everybody's doing, from whether it's a center or guards blocking scheme, to routes, to carrying out fakes. And Elliott's that guy. He's that leader that not only vocalizes, but he also puts it into action. So his throws have become more accurate. His getting the ball out, reading has become a lot better. And again, he's just that guy that makes us better by him just being on the field. He's that kind of kid, on and off the field. So when you have that kind of talent mixed with that kind of character, only good things can happen.
Absolutely. And talking about the talent and character, I mentioned them a little bit earlier in the show, but in the conversation. But Ben and Clay getting hurt last year, going through that process of working to come back and getting back. Whenever y'all did start practices back up or off-season workouts and they started showing up and everything, what was the attitude like with the guys that last year saw that and saw their hard work and I'm assuming they even being hurt and being on the sidelines, they still carried that leadership role to where when they came back in, there was no question about, hey, these are still our guys and they're back.
No, absolutely. And that's it's easy to see leadership when somebody's getting the carries or somebody's making the tackles, but when you see somebody that can't step out on the field and produce, and you see them still leading, that's huge. And that's what those guys did, as far as coaching up other guys, encouraging them, and just to see that the work ethic, especially for our younger guys, to see those guys work to get back to where they needed to be. You think about being with his ACL, having to get back in shape and work hard, to get the strength back up and to get cleared and to get ready to step back on the field. And then same thing for for Clay.
Yep.
Have surgery, get plates put in his foot, and to come back and work and work through the pain and work through trying to stay in shape, and that just shows the dedication that those two have, and that carries over and that helps buy-in. It's hard to go out there when you're the only guy buying in, but when you see guys like that, it carries over and it's contagious. And so that's been huge for our team this year.
I want to ask one more question about the Pat game. They're in the fourth quarter. Pat came back. They're up 26-22. They try the onside. You guys recover it, and everybody knows the situation. You guys have to run the clock out. You have to finish this out. Don't give them the ball because they're on a little bit of a roll. Who was the main guy speaking up? Was there one guy speaking up and going, "Hey, let's finish this out. Let's close this out. Let's handle business right here"?
Yeah, so I would think in that game, offensively, you had Elliott and Clay out there saying we got to close this out, and then from the other side you had had Cullen voicing it. So, and with those guys, it was contagious. So
Well,
again,
and it didn't hurt that your line. I'm sorry to interrupt. It didn't hurt that your line handled business too.
no, absolutely, absolutely.
And
Our line. Go ahead, sorry.
well, and I was going to say that's not the first I've heard about your line from other coaches. That it's one of the most punishing lines. So, big kudos to you guys because a lot of teams don't have that up front.
No, yeah, that's another big thing that's been big about this year is our line, and not just our depth as well too. And that's one thing I think that we've struggled in the past with is our offensive line. And there's always this mentality I feel, and you see it on a lot of teams, but there's always a mentality that defense brings the hype and offense is just kind of there. But we've really preached to our offensive line that we want to be punishers.
Yeah.
We want to have that kind of mentality that most people have on defense. You can have that kind of mentality on offense, and having a core group of seniors that's played together. You got Jonathan Snow at center, Jacob Graves and Gavin Graham at guards. You got Joe White at tight end, and then you got a couple more guys that are rotating in, and it's huge. It makes it a good thing. So
You guys are in a conference that has teams like Evangel or Ezekiel, or and then there's you guys. People always, you ask the question, well, who would you guys want to play? Who do you want to get on schedule? And teams always say, oh, well, it might be fun to play this team or that team. You guys are in that conference. You don't have a choice. You have to play teams like that. That has to do something to the mentality of your guys of just being a little bit tougher because they don't have an option. You have to play that game and you have to win that game if you want your season to keep going. That has to be a huge motivator, not just for the guys, but for you and your coaching staff as well.
no, absolutely. Coach Tim has done a great job at Evangel and continues to do a great job. And that's that's the team that has set the standard in our conference, and that's where we want to be at. And you're right. We got to take care of business, and in order if we want to take that next step. So that's definitely one that if we want to continue to play and continue to go to postseason play, that's a game that we're going to have to take care of. And so we know that we're going to have to be physical. We're going to have to play smart, and so we're trying to do everything we can 1 week at a time to get better and get to that place.
Last question for you, and it's obviously you don't want to overlook the teams coming up because of the tough stretch, and a loss or two losses could maybe throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in something. But has the F word come up any with your guys, Florida? Has that come up at all?
We want to take care of business in our conference first.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
If we can take care of business in our conference, then we'll talk about the F word.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join me, and man, I'm looking forward to seeing the run you guys go on. It's fun watching y'all play, and by the way, a big shout out to a very unsung hero with your organization, Rob Farrell, who does the Max Preps quick scoring. Big shout out to him because that's a big way to be able to keep up with your guys. So, but a big shout out to him. But Coach, I appreciate you joining me, and looking forward to seeing what you guys do this year.
Yes, sir. Thank you, James. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir. We'll see you, Coach.
All right. Bye.
All right. That's Coach J.J. Duarte from Lighthouse Warriors. And, yeah, big shout-out to Mr. Rob Farrell for doing that every week. It's huge. It really is. It's really cool to be able to keep up with how the Warriors are doing no matter where they are, and he does a great job with that. And I mean that question. They are in the conference that has, and they're one of those teams. Everyone says, well, we could play them. We could, it'd be cool to get them on the schedule, or maybe one day we'll play them and get on their level. They don't have that option. They have to play these teams. But you see how good friends all these coaches are, and they talk, and they have good relationships with each other. You can see that, with the media day that the ACSC does, and I didn't even get a chance to ask them about that. But what a great situation for Lighthouse, and they do have a good home situation. The internet isn't the best, but a good home atmosphere for the Warriors there in Oneonta. Actually, I think they play their home games in Pinson, if I'm not mistaken. So, second time in I believe 3 weeks that the two teams are playing. Abundant Life got the win last time, and so the Owls and the Knights matching up there. Southwest Christian, they are on the road at Cornerstone Spartans, and that's a game that I got a chance to broadcast last year. That one at Southwest in North Little Rock. Now they're playing at Cornerstone, which I believe they play in Joplin, Missouri, if I'm not mistaken. So that game happening on a Saturday to help with travel a little bit. Over in Louisiana, Southwest Louisiana Homeschool, they are at the North Shore Vultures. Big conference matchup there, as well as Mount Olive Christian, a team that struggled a little bit. They are heading to John Paul the Great Academy there in Lafayette. And we'll see. We'll see if they're the latest victims. Let's see if John Paul the Great moves to 5-0 on the season. Jumping over to South Carolina, Harvest Christian. They are at Victory Christian. They're in the SIFA, as well as the Coastal Hurricanes at the Pack Panthers. Big rivalry game there between the Hurricanes and the Panthers. And then Augusta Eagles, they will host New Hope Leadership Academy. So they are coming off the game against Pack, and Augusta coming off the big win against the Coastal Hurricanes. So a little crossover between those four teams there. Going to Alabama, I have completely forgotten to mention Alabama School for the Deaf and Tennessee School for the Deaf and South Carolina School. So the schools for the deaf. I have neglected to mention them, and so I apologize. You guys deserve to get mentioned just as much as everybody else. So I'm going to pull up this conference real quick because Alabama School for the Deaf recently played a really cool game, and they got a cool one coming up this week as well. Let me see if I can. There we go. All right, so let's see if I got a way to back up a little bit. Let's look at the complete schedule. There we go. All right. So last week you had. Was it last week? No. Maybe a week before last. Oklahoma School for the Deaf, they were at Mississippi School for the Deaf, and the Bison got a 50-28 win. Tennessee School for the Deaf hosted Louisiana and came away with a 56-44 win. And then Texas School for the Deaf came up to Alabama School for the Deaf there in Tuscaloosa and got a 46-6 win. So now jumping to this week, we have 3 games. Model Secondary. I think it's Model Secondary. Nope, Minnesota State. Minnesota State Academy for the Deaf. The Trojans, they are hosting Louisiana School for the Deaf. And the whole School for the Deaf situation is awesome because you have most of the time you have each state playing each other. So it's almost college atmosphere. South Carolina School for the Deaf, they are on the road at Mississippi School for the Deaf. And then Oklahoma School for the Deaf is at Alabama School for the Deaf. All those games taking place on Saturday. The Oklahoma-Alabama game at 7, South Carolina-Missouri at 2, and Louisiana-Minnesota at 2 as well. Let's see. Let's jump to – well, we'll stay in Alabama. Tabernacle Christian, second game of the year. They are at Cornerstone Rainsville. Who are coming off that loss to the Lighthouse Warriors, like I mentioned. So big conference game there in the CFA, as well as Success Unlimited Academy. They are at Victory Christian on Thursday, and so big conference game there for those two. Now, the CFA does have a 4-team playoff, and let me pull up that conference real quick. Look at the conference standings. I know it's super early in the season. Just kind of get a feel for where everybody's at. So Jacksonville Christian is 2-0 in the conference. Russell Christian is 2-0. And then Tabernacle, Success, Tuscaloosa, and Cornerstone all at 0-1. and Victory Christian has not played a conference game yet. So early runner leaders. You do have Tuscaloosa Christian at 2-2 overall, Success Unlimited at 1-2, and then Tabernacle only at 0-1. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. Cornerstone Christian Rainsville at 0-3 overall, but only 0-1 in the conference. So a lot of conference play to be figured out. And we'll see how that shakes out there in the CFA. Speaking of the CFA, well, do we have any more CFA games? No, but we do have some AISA games. Southern Prep, they are on the road at North River Christian. So the Fighting Rangers coming off the loss to the Lightning, Evangel Christian Lightning. North River coming off the loss to East Central. Riverside Christian out of Fayetteville, Tennessee. They are on the road at Cornerstone Columbiana. And this is Cornerstone. This is going to be Cornerstone's first 8-man game of the year. They're coming off of 2 11-man games, and then they were off this past week. If I'm not mistaken, let me pull up their schedule. Let's see. There they are, the Chargers. Yeah, so they were off this last week after playing the 2 11-man games, and so kind of reset for 8-man, and they've got their whole stretch. They are playing Bessemer Academy, apparently, at the end of the year. But they'll play Riverside, and then they kind of focus on their conference play, playing their 5 conference opponents in 6 weeks. Speaking of AISA, Meadowview Christian, they are at Springwood School. Meadowview struggling a little bit on the season. Springwood, I mentioned them. They are 3-0, and so they are on a roll there in the AISA. And I think it might be a little early. Well, yeah, it might be a little early. Springwood's 2-0. Evangel and Southern Prep are 0-1, and then the other 3 have not played a conference game yet. So we'll see how that shakes out there in the AISA. In the ACSC, you have Ezekiel. Southern Christian, they are hosting Trinity Christian Homeschool out of Pelham. I think they're out of Pelham. Let me double check this, just so I know for sure. Let's see. Pelham, yep. So, but yeah, Southern Christian only playing the 1 game so far against Lighthouse, and so they'll be looking to get their season going as well. Carolina Wildcats, they are at Evangel Christian Alabaster, and Carolina Wildcats coming out of Pickens, South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, Pickens, South Carolina, and they are 1-1 on the season. I know they had a win over Cary Christian a couple weeks ago, and then they played St. Maurice Academy and got a win in that game. No, they lost to Cary Christian. I'm sorry. They lost to Cary Christian 50-14, and then got a win this past Friday night over St. Maurice Academy. So they'll head to Alabaster, Alabama for the 2nd year in a row, and it should be an interesting situation for them, but we'll see what happens there. I think that's it for Alabama. Let's jump to Tennessee. Sacred Heart of Jesus High School, first game of the year for them. They were going to play the game against Riverside Christian and had some officiating issues. That game had to be canceled. But first game of the year for them, they are at Franklin Classical over there at Freedom Intermediate School. And the Knights coming off of a week off after the win against Innovation Academy a couple weeks ago. Tennessee Heat, they are playing an 11-man game. I believe it is Grundy County here in Tennessee. Let's see. Yeah, Grundy County. Of course, Tennessee Heat coming off the 11-man loss to Donaldson Christian Academy, and they'll play at Grundy County down in Colmont. So 2 11-man games for them, an 11-man game for Tri-Cities Christian as well. They'll take on Jellicoe High School up there in East Tennessee. And so they'll kind of switch gears a little bit and get ready for that. Zion Christian, they are on the road at Christian Community. Big SEC TSIAA matchup between the Eagles and the Colts. And that game being played in White House at Mayflanders Field. Franklin Christian on the road again. They are in Robertson County as well at South Haven Christian. And so Patriots and the Falcons will be matching up there. Big TSIAA conference matchup between those two. And then another TSIAA matchup, Innovation Academy at Lancaster Christian on Saturday. Lancaster not playing last week. And then they had the situation with Franklin Christian. Everything I've heard so far, that player is doing well. So glad to hear that. And so Innovation will be on the road at Lancaster Christian there in Smyrna on Saturday. So a lot of football coming up this week. Very excited for it. Looking forward to it. I will mention again, I really think that if you're a parent or an alumni at a game, I think you should consider doing the max preps, the quick scoring. It really is. It's easy. It's great for people trying to keep up with the game, myself included. I'm saying this kind of selfishly, but it is very helpful for people trying to keep up with the game. And so you can go on Max Preps and kind of look it over. It's not a hard system at all. Pretty simple to keep up with. So there's that. All right. Let's see if I missed anything. I don't think so. I think that's it. All right. Well, that'll do it for Extreme Talk presented by Complete Real Estate, where experience and integrity matter. Thank you so much for catching the show today. We'll see you this weekend.